I tried filming this video one time and I finished the video before I realized I didn't turn on my ring light. Something a language learner really needs to care about is whether other languages use the same words talking about the same topic. In my last video, I was playing a game. When I was speaking Korean, I used the expression 정신이 없다. 정신이 없어. Which is like, it's hectic. There is no mind because everything is just so crazy and chaotic. And it got me thinking. I knew this expression in Korean and I got the feeling that that was the moment to use it, but I have no idea how I would say that in French or German. It's not that my Korean is so amazing that I know special expressions, but that's just such a common expression in Korean that just naturally came out. Whereas if I was speaking German, that's not something they say that often. So what determines what words we learn in a language? Well, the number one thing is culture. Culture affects how we discuss things, and that imprint is left on the language. So even if you aren't part of the culture, you need to express yourself in the framework that natives have created. Some things are more common in some cultures, so you'll encounter that word a lot. Think about how before our society was industrialized, we didn't have words for train, we probably didn't use the word schedule so much, but because of how our culture lives, that word exists, and it is really common. Think about how Americans love talking about freedom and liberty, and it bleeds over into how we express ourselves, even if it's not about freedom and liberty. So if someone told you why they like a piece of technology, they might say, I like having the freedom of using this and this at the same time. They express themselves in these terms that might be foreign for another language. For example, I think Eastern European people are pretty pessimistic, and I think one of the expressions that is most common in the Bulgarian language is narochno, on purpose. And in some of the languages I know, I don't think I've ever heard this expression on purpose. It exists, but it's just not that common. Whereas in Bulgarian, I think I hear this expression in so many conversations. The second thing that influences what words you choose is grammar. Grammar influences which words are necessary because of something that the grammar cannot express. 원래 is a really common word for Korean. It means originally. I think in English a lot we want to say something like I used to do something, I was trying to do something. In Korean they have a lot of verb endings that express the speaker's emotion, whether that be surprise or assumption or guessing. But in English we have a lot of expressions with helping words. So for us, we would rather use I used to or it used to be that, just based on how our grammar is set up. In Germanic languages like English and German and Swedish, we use a lot of helping verbs, so we have to learn a lot of modal verbs. In Romance languages, however, future tenses are completely different stems of the verb, so may or will or would might not even exist in a lot of Romance languages. Do they not talk about that in that language? No, they just express it differently. So in the count of words that you have to learn, may or will or would aren't even in the list because they don't exist. In English, they're really high on that list because there's no other way to express that except for with this individual word. Something else that really affects how we choose our words is how words are built. In my mind, there are languages that are noun heavy, adjective heavy, and verb heavy. This is completely arbitrary. This is just based on feeling, not any research or any number. For me, English is really verb heavy because usually the strongest word in the sentence is probably a verb. French is really adjective heavy because a lot of meaning is derived from these really precise adjectives. Korean and Japanese are really noun heavy because so many expressions have meaningful nouns. And this influences if a certain word even exists in some languages. In Japanese, the word for smart is atama ga ii, so head is good. So if I were to say you are smart, I would say kimi wa atama ga ii, something like as for you, head is good. English has the word for head, we have the word for good, we have the word for smart. Japanese has two of those words and constructs something else based on some unique phrase including both of them. So do Japanese people not talk about being smart? No, they talk about it, but they don't use a specific word like we do in English. It's hard to say exactly how culture and grammar and word construction come together to influence our vocabulary, but you need to be vigilant about how natives describe things, not how you want to describe things. Your target language might make distinctions that you would never have thought of. In English, we have the word eat, but in German, you ask yourself the question, is it an animal eating or is it a person eating? In English, we have the verb bring, but in French, you have to ask yourself the question, is the direct object a person or an object? In English, we ask ourselves really ridiculous questions too. Are you drawing that carriage, meaning you're using a string or rope, or are you pulling that carriage using your raw strength? I think that's that on that. I think most language learners have a feeling for this kind of thing already, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents and how I see things. You can follow me on social media. I post on Instagram every day. On my website, I talk about all sort of language related things, and I talk a lot about these word distinctions that can be hard for learners. I made a post about that bring I mentioned earlier in the French language. I made a post about German where I talk about all the words to say use. Because for us in English we have use, in German you have to ask yourself like 4 questions to figure out which word you should choose. So thank you for watching today. I will see you for another video very soon, alright? Bye-bye.